Okay, we have 4 items on the agenda for public hearings, 3 letters of recommendation and 1 preliminary plat recommendation and 1 other item. So welcome to the attendees, and I guess it's time for a roll call.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Commissioner Cohn.
Here.
Commissioner Broyles.
Here.
Commissioner Clayton.
Here.
Commissioner Depler. Just give me 1 second. She's on her way in, excuse me. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Brost.
Here.
Mayor Boland. And I'll call for Commissioner Depler one more time.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have any questions or comments tonight before we ask for approval of the minutes?
Mr. Chair, the department has no opening remarks, but thank you.
Can I have an emotion to approval of the meetings of Monday, March the 6th?
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. All right. And then again, Mr. Vunich, there's no department opening remarks or updates?
Mr. Chair, if you could ask for a voice vote on the motion to approve the minutes.
Can I have a voice vote on the approval of the minutes, please? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstain?
I abstain.
Motion. Okay. Do we have any public comments? This will be for all on active items. It's already turned into Mr. Newberry.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'll be calling names of folks who want to speak on any item except for the public hearing at this time. And then after that, we'll move into the public hearing. For the general public comment session, I have Mr. Doster.
Planning Commission, my name is Mike Doster. I'm here representing the petitioner, Greenberg Development Company. There is a letter of recommendation on the agenda, and I'm just here to answer any questions that the commission might have. I understand that Mr. Stock, the civil engineer, will be joining us remotely, and he will be happy to answer any questions that the civil engineer should address.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have one additional speaker card for the person and the people in the room is Mr. Mullen. When Mr. Mullen comes to the podium, if any attendees on Zoom would like to speak during the general public comment session, not the public hearings, use the raise hand feature. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before we start, in the city of Wildwood, public hearings are truly intended to accept comments and questions concerning these items. Since these requests are being presented at a public hearing, no action is planned on these items tonight, and in consideration of them is to be taken no earlier than May 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This approach ensures the members of the commission will hear all opinions before they take any action. The city's Department of Planning will address the comments, questions, and concerns that are raised tonight and include them as part of the formal recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anyone in attendance at City Hall tonight wanting to speak should fill out a speaker's card and leave it with Mr. Newberry. Those in attendance via Zoom webinar should use the raise hand feature to indicate that you wish to speak. At these hearings, a team member will add you to the list of speakers, which will then be communicated to me as chair, and I will invite you to speak when it's your turn. The commission will allow all parties adequate time to present their position, but all speakers are limited to 5 minutes each. Speakers will be advised when 1 minute is left in the allotted time. In addition, if you're just going to bring up something that's already been said, please don't. We've already heard it. Thank you.
Good day, Commission. My name is Jay Mellon. I'm here on behalf of Trident 3 and Bulls Engineering. I will be available if you have any questions about Riger Farms project. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, and no member or no attendee has raised their hand via Zoom, and that was the conclusion of the cards for the public comment session.
All right, so I guess we're ready for Mr. Vunich for PZ 3-23.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Our first item for public hearing tonight is PZ 3-23, Sarah and Patrick Wood, 17837 Wilderness Cliff Court, Wildwood, Missouri, 63005, care of Astro Watt Solar and Megan Murphy, 3525 Roanoke Road, Suite 110, Kansas City, Missouri, 64111. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the R1 1 acre resident district for the installation of roof mounted solar panels, which are to be so situated on the dwelling as to be visible from the adjoining roadway, with such being located at 17837 Wilderness Cliff Court, St. Louis County, locator number 19W 620226, street address 17837 Wilderness Cliff Court. The request is to be reviewed in accordance with chapter 415.110 R1 1 acre resident district regulations of the city of Wildwood zoning ordinance, which establishes standards and requirements for the installation of solar panels. This requested permit is required due to the panel's placement on the front facing area of the roof of the dwelling, thereby causing them to be visible from the adjoining roadway. This particular property is located in Ward 1. And before Mr. Newberry provides a brief slide presentation, the department would like to introduce into the record the following items: the city's charter, the city's master plan, inclusive of Chapter 8 and conceptual land use categories map, the city's zoning ordinance, Chapter 415 of its municipal code, the file that has been developed and maintained by the Department of Planning relative to this particular request and all contents contained therein. And then finally, any testimony, exhibits, or other items as are provided as part of tonight's public hearing. Thank you.
Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department's prepared a brief slide presentation for the benefit of the commission members as well as those in attendance to orient you to the site and some photographs of it. The first image is an aerial photograph of the location of the property, which is highlighted in light blue here. The property is located on Wilderness Cliff Court and south of Wild Horse Creek Road. And the next image is just a zoomed in closer to the location of the property. The next image is looking to the south and east on Wilderness Cliff Court, standing at its intersection near the home. The next is looking to the north and to the west. The next few images are of the home itself. This is standing at that same location, looking toward the home. The solar panels are proposed, as was noted in what Mr. Vunich read into the record, to be placed on the front of the home and visible from the streets. The next is a side angle of the home, which is essentially a corner lot. And the final image is an image provided by the petitioner showing the placement of the panels depicted onto the home with some more foliage on the trees, time of year different than today. So with that, a few of additional slides, just the plan view of the proposed location of the panels. And that concludes the department's presentation. Mr. Chair, there are a number of speaker cards for those in the audience, as well as a representative for the petitioners who's here to speak on behalf of the project as well.
Go ahead, Commissioner Jackson.
Well, we're not taking action on this tonight, correct? We are. Okay.
No, excuse me. No, sir.
Okay.
Just a public
And
hearing.
would this be covered in the newly adopted solar that was going before the city council if approved?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jackson, as you know, the Planning and Zoning Commission has been working on revisions to our solar energy system regulations. However, in this particular instance, the application was ready for hearing. In the zoning ordinance, there are provisions that require us to get it to the Planning and Zoning Commission within that timeframe, and that's why it's here tonight.
And we're not taking action anyway until this time.
No, sir. The earliest we would take action is May, but recently we postponed an item of a similar nature till the end of the summer to give us ample time to get the new regulations through the process, both here at Planning and Zoning Commission, then City Council.
Thank you.
Mr. Newberry. First comment.
Mr. Chair, I believe I saw Ms. Helfrey's hand raised. I'm not sure. Okay.
She waved me off.
And Mr. Chair, would you like to hear from the petitioner's representative first?
I would like to hear from the petitioner's representative first.
And I have a Brian, and I apologize, I can't read the last name, with Astro Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the committee. My name is Brian Binkholder with Astrowatt Solar. I live in O'Fallon, Missouri, and I have solar in my house. And I understand everything with individuals with their feelings about it. My wife was exactly the same way. So I can totally understand some of the apprehension by the community and different people that will share their views. Some of the items I did want to note to you is, as you saw the illustration of what solar looks like. Solar today is all black. We only use our company. We only do all black panels, black frame, black panel itself. There's no silver to it. There's no white backsheet that creates that ugly looking solar like so many people are used to seeing. If you drive down the road by a firehouse and you see, the solar that they have up there. I mean, that's god awful. I admit it. It's terrible. This is all black. That's the way the solar industry has been transitioning. Good companies, at least. It does cost more, but the aesthetics wise makes it something that's palatable. The house itself, there's no other options. It's north-south facing house. Southern facing is, of course, your maximum yield. East-west is okay too. There is no east-west, so we've got south. Most other communities, I deal with this all the time. Town and Country, Kirkwood, various municipalities totally understand. There were some questions that were raised or some comments that were made. It looked to be the same one online and then filed by the next door neighbors, which again, totally understand. They noted something about their realtor had told them, property values decreased 50%. I would just take you to articles that realtor.com has themselves done online, which shows that solar panels actually help values. Now, again, this is just one of those things that, I've always wanted a big home when I'm buying a house. Now, as I get older, I'm looking at smaller yards, right? Our changes, all of us are different. We all have different likes and taste, but it is one of the hottest items right now, excuse the pun, when you're looking at homes. The other thing I might add is talking about some of the things you can do for improving your house, and realtor.com in that article, 15 items that they said that would help your home. And number 5 was adding solar. So again, this is all going to change, of course, as we start looking at dynamics with Ameren, with what's happening there. Also MISO, which is our intercontinental system grid. They noted last year we're going to have brownouts because there's 5 gigawatts hour of power short, and that's due to closing of coal plants. We just don't have the power. And so that's another thing that I encourage homeowners with solar. I'm not a green energy person. I mean, I'm a financial person. And the sad fact of the matter is, through national policies, we're not going to have enough energy. And so rooftop solar provides that right at the location for the house. The final thing I'll say is there were some questions and concerns about some of the items in it. The panels we're using, and you have the spec sheets in what we've provided. Those spec sheets show we're using REC Panels, who is a leader in the European technology, European solar movement based out of Norway. Europe has developed different procedures for recycling panels. 100% of this panel is recyclable. So if there's any issues, it goes back to the distributor. Also, this panel is lead free. That was a comment that was made about having lead. This panel is lead free. Number two, this panel also, I can't even say this word. I have an English degree, but I can't say it.
1 minute.
Cadmium
You got
telluride.
1 minute to
Yeah,
finish.
thank you so much. I'm checking his clock. So there's none of that in it either. So two of the items that the homeowners were concerned about, these panels don't even have. Then the final thing about leakage and everything else. I mean, I understand the concern. I totally get it. But as you know, OSHA is pretty stringent on the workplace and people handling hazardous materials. They probably wouldn't be allowing us to install solar panels if it was so hazardous. So with that, I'm here to take any questions, help the committee on this. And then also, I appreciate homeowners and their views. I get it. I totally understand. And hopefully, if they look at what we do solar panel wise. Also, final note in my 13 seconds is we run all conduit pipes through the attic space. So there's nothing but solar on the roof. Unlike a lot of companies that run the conduit pipe on the roof line, everything is held within the house and clean look. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for your information. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. Travis, Mr. Newberry, I mean, or-
Mr. Chair, the first speaker card is Ms. Simpson.
give us your name and address, please.
Mary Simpson, 1152 Keystone Trail Drive. I am an HOA trustee for the Wilderness at Wild Horse subdivision, which is where this project is being done at. I have a copy of the letter that was sent to you all from Patrick to you all, and I have issues with the third and fourth paragraph. It says in the third paragraph that he spoke to his surrounding neighbors and said each are supportive of this process. And I disagree with that. I have polled and talked to personally a few of them. I did a picture of what the graph looked like that you were shown before, and I marked a red. So all of the board members are against it. However, when Patrick submitted it to you guys, Chris Kolb, one of the board members, had signed his petition. He felt pressure to sign it. He was told at that time that everyone approved. So he decided to approve it just because everybody was approving it. He came to find out later that it's not. He sent Larry Brost a email telling them that he was a resident and that he was rescinding that signature. And I have a copy of the email that he sent Larry Brost rescinding that. So they no longer have his signature also. They also said that we had no objections to raise on our own. However, when we wrote them and talked to the woman named Megan, we commented that we are very concerned about the tiles being installed on the front of the house. We believe Wildwood requires they not be installed on the front, but we are not sure. You will need to get approval from City of Wildwood. We were also informed that the house there was a Missouri law passed last summer that said HOAs no longer had power to say no on solar panels. And so we felt like we were bound by what we have in our indentures and what we were told, that we could not just say no without being liable in some way for saying no. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I think I said it. Did I give you the picture?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Very,
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Jerry Dolan.
Thank you so much. My name is Geraldine Dolan, and I'm at 17845 Wilderness Cliff Court. I am right next door to the woods. And I oppose the installation of these roof mounted panels on the front of the roof. I strongly oppose them, actually. To me, they're unsightly. I I enjoy spending time outdoors. I'm out in the neighborhood a lot. And as well as entertaining outdoors right next door to that house. Aesthetics are very important to me. With that roof being visible to me and many other people in the neighborhood, because it actually faces 3 roads, the way it is turned. It's visible from 3 different roads there. And with that, to me, it brings the beauty of the neighborhood. I take pride in the home I have. I try to make it beautiful for others to see, and I want the same for my neighbors. It's a big investment to have in that home, and so with that investment, I don't want to decrease through the permit of these roof mounted panels on the front of this home. To me, I beg to differ with the property values. I spoke with our realtor and banker of many years. He has a lot of experience in the business, and he told me, or actually spoke with my husband and told my husband that probably 50% of our possible buyers would say no because of the panels on that roof. That was his opinion that he gave to us. And I trust that and value that. And so I am very concerned, again, have worked hard to purchase this home and live in this beautiful neighborhood. And I do not want to see the value of my home decreased. I'm also the one who is opposed because of health concerns. I have read a lot about solar panels, and I have read that they do contain heavy metals. Cadmium telluride is one, and it's very toxic in very small amounts. Lead is the other, and these materials can leach from these solar panels. So to me, it's not worth it to have a possible health issue right next door. It's very concerning to me that there is a risk. They are considered toxic waste, as you know, and these can they can crack during installation. They can also crack during storms. This is, from materials I've read. And so I do have that concern as well. So because of these reasons, I ask that this permit be denied, and just thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Vincent Wood.
Chairman, members of the commission, thank you. I'm here to voice my objection.
Your name and address.
I'm sorry,
please.
Vincent Wood, no relation, 17853 Wilderness Cliff Court. So I'm 2 doors down from the petitioner. I'm here to voice my objection to the application for street facing solar panels at 17837 Wilderness Cliff Court. On February 9th, the city of Wildwood senior planner Travis Newberry inquired with Astrowatt Solar about the planned clearance or the height proposed on the panels, distance from the roof. Mr. Newberry referenced the plans indicated a panel height up to 6 inches off the roof, but he said the department is seeking these panels to be flush mounted or as close as such as possible. The response from Megan Hale with Astrowatt Solar was simply, we will be using Iron Ridge flush mount system. I've attached the installation manual. Panels will be flush mount, and the top of the panel will be no more than 6 inches off the roof surface. Just because they call it flush mount doesn't mean that it's flush mount. On March 6, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to change the rules regarding street facing solar panels to require integrated panels. This change was suggested after careful consideration and debate. The application before you today is for flush mount solar panels with a 6-inch height from the roof surface. These are not integrated panels and would be an eyesore to our beautiful neighborhood. If the standards are getting ready to change, it only makes sense to require this application to adhere to those future changes. I'd like to address a couple things outlined in Mr. Wood's letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated 12/27 of 22. The applicant claims that he spoke with surrounding neighbors and impacted neighbors. The applicant did not speak with me or get a signature from a majority of the residents on the cul-de-sac, which is impacted by this proposal. 6 neighbors directly impacted by this proposal in the cul-de-sac did not sign the letter and do not support this. The applicant claims that oak trees do not lose leaves. This is just a false statement. Any deer hunter in Missouri can tell you that those leaves are down in early November. And as of today, April 3rd, 2023, there are no leaves on the oak trees in front of his house. Those photos appear to have been taken in October due to the lawn ornaments celebrating Halloween that are visible in the photographs. And they're not an accurate representation of the view of the roof for 5 or 6 months out of the year. The applicant claims to have added, quote, a couple additionally recently planted trees, specifically detailing one tree on the southwest corner of his property. This tree is less than 6 feet tall and less than 3 feet wide. It does not make an impact on the visibility of the roof. The other tree referenced in his letter is also similar in description and is not on his property at all or under his control. The applicant also submitted an email authored by an HOA member, which has already been addressed by Ms. Simpson. I do believe the HOA has some insight into this in Article 6 of our indentures, and I hope you get a chance to look at those. And I'll leave that last part out. I appreciate your time and attention, and I respectfully request that this application be denied.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is, John Dolan.
Mr. Chairman and planner of the rest of the committee, I don't have a lot to say because my wife said most of it. And I was just going to follow up on what Vince Wood said.
Name
And
and
basically
address.
is, I have photos I took last night.
Just address.
John Dolan, at 7845.
Thank you.
Anyway, the concern of the trees is valid, and if you guys need to see them, I can email you photos I took last night at dusk, and it's visible in nighttime. It's even going to be more visible during the daytime. The only other comment I would have to make is apparently the solar company feels the same way, because they were giving us a solution to a problem that exists is, oh, don't worry, the trees will hide the panels when the leaves are on. Must be something there to that, or they wouldn't be concerned about it. And obviously they are in business to make a profit. And I think that probably plays in a lot more than the concern for our neighborhood. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is Kevin Wenger.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Winger. I live at 17861 Wilderness Cliff Court, 3 doors down. And I'm here to say, like Vince and the others, I do not support the solar panels on 17837 Wilderness Cliff on the front of the house. First off, as they had mentioned, it's against the bylaws, and it also will devalue the 23 properties that are in the 2 courts, Wilderness Cliff Court and Wilderness Bluff Court. And if you look at the pictures, the way the house is set up, it's that the subdivision sort of like does a Y, and you can see it from both directions. So you have 23 houses on Wilderness Cliff, or 16 houses on Wilderness Cliff and 8 on Wilderness Bluff Court, the way it splits. And the home is highly visible, and you can see it year round, even with whether the trees are there or not. And it's also visible from the Main Street Keystone Trail, as she had mentioned. As Vince said, the applicant stated he spoke with most of the neighbors, but he certainly did not speak with me or anyone at the end of the Wilderness Cliff Court, which drives by the house 2 or 3 times a day. And he further states that the leaves are on the tree year round. And as Vince mentioned, the leaves have been off the tree since November, and still here we are in April and there are no leaves. Even if we're saying the leaves were to block it, the way the house is situated, it's on a corner and you can see the house no matter what. I mean, as you saw from the one pictures that Travis had from the side, you can see the roof 365 days a year, even if the trees are there. So it's sort of a moot point, but I mean, just to give you an idea, it's visible no matter what, even if the leaves are there. The other thing is, I mean, as they had mentioned in the values of the house, is the highest priced home sales in the subdivision have been on Wilderness Cliff Court here in the past year. And the main reason is because the 2 courts are highly desirable because they're private, and there's not a lot of traffic there, but the addition of solar panels will devalue the property. If the applicant wants to put solar panels on it, go ahead, as long as they install them on the back side of the house so it doesn't affect the visual impact of everyone else in the subdivision. Appreciate your time and your attention, and I request that you deny the application for this project.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, that was the final speaker card the department received regarding this item tonight.
Mr. Vunich, I guess we're ready for PZ 5-23.
Mr. Chair, respectfully, if the department would ask for a motion to close the public hearing, and
Can I
that
have
could be done by a
motion
voice
to
vote.
Close the public. Commissioner
I move
Clayton,
to
we have a second.
close the public hearing.
We have a second. Commissioner Jackson, voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Hearings closed. Mr. Vunich, PC 5-23, please.
Mr. Chair, the next series of public hearings are as follows. PZ 5-23 Crestview McBride Bear Land Company LLC, 17415 North Outer 40 Road, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005. A request for modification of the Town Center Regulating Plan for a total of 4 properties that are currently designated by it as Downtown District to the Neighborhood General District. Street addresses 16927, 16921, 16915, 16907 Crestview Drive, St. Louis County, locator numbers 23V 220161, 23V 220141, 23V 220150, and 23V 220172. Thereby accommodating a portion of their use for up to 131 attached and detached single-family dwellings on individual lots and associated street and pedestrian network, off-street parking areas, required public space, and stormwater management facilities, all in association with an approximately 9.65 acre tract of land, that is located on the north side of Crestview Drive, east of its intersection with Etherton Road. The requested modification to this Town Center Regulating Plan is applicable to this 9.65 acre tract of land minus an approximately 1.05 acre area, with such being identified on the preliminary development plan as an outlot of this residential project, which is to retain the downtown district designation for planned future commercial uses, all being identified by the city's Town Center Plan. This particular petition is located in Ward 8. Second, PZ 6-23 Crestview McBride Bear Land Company LLC, 17415 North Outer 40 Road, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005. A request for a change in zoning for a total of 9 properties that are currently designated either the NU non-urban resident district. Street addresses 2406, 2420, and 2424 Etherton Road, and 16933, 16927, 16921, 16915, and 16907 Crestview Drive. St. Louis County locator numbers 23V 210085, 23V 210052, 23V 210113, 23V 220132, 23V 220161, 23V 220141, 23V 220150, and 23V 220172. For R3 10,000 square foot resident district. Street address 2418 Etherton Road, St. Louis County, locator number 23V 21006 Street, to the R6A 4,000 square foot resident district with a planned residential development overlay district, PRD, all in association with an overall tract of land that is 16.3 acres in area and located on the north side of Crestview Drive, east of its intersection with Etherton Road. Proposed use: a maximum of 131 single-family attached and detached dwellings on individual lots, along with associated street and pedestrian network, off-street parking areas, required public space, and stormwater management facilities. This particular petition is located in Ward 8. And then finally, PZ 7-23 Crestview McBride Bear Land Company LLC, 17415 North Outer 40 Road, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005. A request for a change in zoning for a 1.05 acre portion of the total of a total of 3 properties as identified on the preliminary development plan, with such being an outlot of an associated residential property, which are currently designated the NU non-urban resident district. 16927, 16921, 16915 Crestview Drive, St. Louis County, locator numbers 23V 220161, 23V 220141, and 23V 220150. To the C2 shopping district, with this area being located on the north side of Crestview Drive, east of its intersection with Etherton Road. Proposed uses: all C2 shopping district permitted and conditional uses. This last petition is also located in Ward 8.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, again, the department has prepared hopefully a brief slide presentation just to orient you to the overall site and the various properties associated with the request that Mr. Vunich just read into the record. The first is an aerial image of the 9 properties highlighted in a blue shape. You'll note that this is just to the west of City Hall here, north of Crestview Drive, the future extension of Main Street. The next is just a little bit closer aerial image highlighting each of the individual properties that are part of the request. And then we'll move into the photographs of the area. This is standing at the terminus of Crestview Drive, looking to the west. To your left there, to the south is the Village Green site, just to the west of City Hall here. And to the right or to the north is the subject properties. This is standing on Crestview Drive, looking toward the east. You can see the hotel there through the utility lines. Next series of photographs are just images of the individual properties along Crestview Drive first. And so we're just moving from the east to the west. These are the current conditions of the site. This is an image of the open field along Crestview Drive toward the westernmost portion of this overall site. And the next image is a different angle that shows the home and the accessory structures associated with those properties. And then this is a photograph, the first photograph taken standing on Etherton Road and looking to the east. This is that corner parcel again that is addressed as Etherton Road, but fronts onto Crestview Drive as well. This is an image standing at that same location, looking to the north. The development on the right-hand side of the photograph that you see is the Villages of Brightleaf. And then the wooded lot is 2418 Etherton Road, which recently went through a zoning process before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then this is the home that's part of the request that's on Etherton Road. The next few slides will depict kind of the area. The first photo on the left is the image of Main Street as it extends west through Main Street crossing to State Route 109. And then the other is an image looking south across from the Main Street intersection, looking south onto Etherton Road. And those homes that you see on the right-hand side are associated with the Main Street crossing development. And then the next image is another development across from this proposal, the Canberra development here. And some of the homes, again, across the street as part of the Canberra development. And then the last few photographs are images of the property's frontage onto State Route 100. First one on the left is standing at the westernmost end of the trail. And that fence is the edge of property that's not included in the proposal. But beyond that are the properties that I've shown you the other side of the properties. Here again is along State Route 100. And then the one on the right is just an image across the highway from the frontage of this proposed development. And then one last image showing standing at the eastern end of the properties on the north frontage onto State Route 100, looking to the west. And that concludes the department's presentation. And a representative from the petitioner is available to give a presentation as well.
Would this be time for the petitioner's representative to speak, please?
Good evening. My name is Catherine Moore. I'm here on behalf of McBride Homes for the 3 public hearings that Mr. Vunich so eloquently read for us. So I appreciate that, Joe. I'm waiting for Mr. Newberry to pull up a presentation. Thank you. Sure, no problem. Okay, so I said my name's Catherine Moore here on behalf of McBride Homes, and we are extremely excited to be back in the city of Wildwood tonight. We've got a group here tonight to hopefully answer any questions the members of the commission might have. Myself, Jeremy Roth, our Vice President of Land Development. He's also the president of our new development company we formed with Barra Construction. Angie Carter of our legal department, and Mike Faulkner with Sterling Engineering, who's the project engineer for the Crestview project that we'll be discussing. For those of you not familiar with our company, it's been a little bit since we've been in the city of Wildwood. We're the largest home builder in the state of Missouri, and we've been in business for 75 years. So stability is definitely our strength, and we're currently developing 30 communities throughout the metropolitan area. And we do have a substantial amount of experience in Wildwood as well. Your talented city staff already acquainted you quite well with the site, but here was an aerial of the 17.36 acres, just for your reference. And as staff indicated, this is an assemblage. We have 9 properties with 8 different owners that McBride currently has under contract. It's taken us over a year to secure this site, to bring this project forth to you tonight, and we're extremely excited about it. The site is currently located in the town center. You saw those photos of single family homes that are there today, but for planning purposes, it's in the neighborhood general district and the downtown district at present. So we're looking at this assemblage as an extremely unique opportunity. And we've met with your city staff, and we were here at your zoning committee weeks ago to really discuss how we can partner with the city to help develop and finish the town center and help provide the right of way and what's needed to finally connect Main Street to Etherton. So we're really looking at this as a long-term project. We put a lot of upfront work into to make things work for McBride Homes, but also the city. So not long ago, this whole area was part of the downtown district, but then a portion of it, I'm not really certain of the details, was transitioned to neighborhood general. So part of the public hearing tonight is to put the entirety of the site, with the exception of that commercial outlot, into the neighborhood general, because that's the district under the regulating plan that permits residential uses. So when we were looking at this site, we were trying to make sure we could come up with a project that met the city's goals under the town center regulating plan. And we believe we can. The project we're presenting to you tonight is truly a hallmark community in the city of Wildwood that's really going to further the city's goals of new urbanism, the connectivity, the walkability, and the architecture features you've been seeking in your town center plan. So we're really, really excited to show you the renderings that we've got. We also believe that with new rooftops by the commercial town center, that'll help support the existing commercial and help bring some more commercial in, including a new commercial use on that commercial outlot that's part of the Crestview project. So when looking at this site and deciding to undertake this assemblage, we really had 3 goals in mind. One was a community that'll meet the city's master plan and the town center regulatory plan. A second was to have a good project that'll serve as a transition use between the existing residential along Etherton and the commercial properties and the upcoming amphitheater use on the other side of the site. So we wanted a good buffer interim use in between the existing land uses that are there today. And we also decided to develop an entirely new product for this project that McBride Homes has not built in any other community. So we have an in-house architecture team. We have very talented designers on staff at McBride Homes, but we hired an outside consultant and showed them your regulatory plan, your town center guidelines, to really develop a new type of home that will only be here, or at least the first in the metro area in Wildwood. And the idea was to have more outside activity, have the connectivity, have more neighborhood involvement, more outside living because of the walkability that this project will have, being so adjacent to the town center area. And in addition to providing additional walkability and connectivity to the folks on Etherton and the other parts of the city. So we wanted to use modern design.
You have 1 minute left.
Mr. Newberry told me I had 15 minutes because of the
Mr.
3
Rooney
public
told me he
hearings.
had-
Okay, well, it's up. I mean, the commission chairman, I will listen to you.
What are the rules in this place?
Mr. Chair, I believe you can extend the time for the petitioner to do the presentation by a simple motion and voice vote to
I'd
give
like to
them.
make a motion to give the petitioner an extra 5 minutes. Do I have a second to the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton, is there okay, speak.
If you
I
could
think everyone would have to vote on it.
All right,
voice vote, please.
a little too quick. Vote, do I have a voice vote? Do I have a second?
Well, we have a second.
All right,
We had-
I made the motion.
Yep, and there's a second, so it'd be I guess, and any nays.
Yes, I'm an aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And based on that voice vote, I will try to abbreviate and go as fast as I can. So we do believe that the Crestview project will further the city's goals for new housing stock, new modern, new urbanism housing opportunities in the city, and fall in line with the requirements and the desires of the town center plan. Here's an aerial showing where the Crestview project site is and how close it is to Canterbury Square and Main Street Crossing, but also that future amphitheater site and the commercial town center. So this really illustrates the need for an interim buffer use, and higher density residential makes more sense here based on the proximity to the existing residential communities. And here is just a color version of the site plan you should have in your packet, showing how the lots align closer to Canterbury along Etherton, showing the layout, showing the large amount of green space, mostly around the perimeter, and the location of that commercial lot. The homes are attached mostly in twos with some single lots that you'll see that were needed for grading and planning purposes. Stormwater management was a big feature in coming up with the plan for this project, as were landscape buffers. And we did submit a pretty significant landscape plan to your city staff for review as well. You'll see a primary entrance off of what would be the future Main Street into an amenity area. And I'll show you some of those amenities, with, again, the commercial outlot being closest to that amphitheater and the town center area, along with that green space where a detention basin is going to go. So here's just another rendering. So project features in total 131 single family homes, over 6 acres of common ground. We have amenities here that include a walking path, a fountain, 2 sculptures, 2 benches, string lights surrounding that central amenities area to allow it to be used at various hours of the day by the residents, and a butterfly garden. These homes all have the rear loading garages, which is a feature of the new urbanism design, and have 1-car rear loading garages and 1 driveway space. There's also guest parking provided on the plan that you were provided. The homes are largely oriented, so along the perimeter, you will not see those garages. And this brings a new type of housing to the city. And again, we developed this product for Wildwood. The density is under the R6A zoning maximums that we could have asked for, but it being a PRD, we went under that as well. And then the C2 neighborhood commercial seemed to fit best for this site for that outlot after discussing it with staff. The single family homes will also feature quite large front porches, and they're courtyard oriented to include that walkability. So you will open your front door to a beautiful landscape courtyard where your neighbors' front doors will also be. So again, those garages are not a focus of this community. All lots come fully sodded, landscape packages, modern floor plans, big rooms, big closets, just like one would expect with McBride Homes. And we've also agreed in meetings with your city staff and meetings with your mayor to exceed the city's building code in various categories, which are listed here on the slide, and which the city staff is well aware. Here are some renderings showing the courtyard fronts of this new home product. Here again is another view showing the orientation being that front yard focus for the walkability we see as being part of the connectivity to the town center. These renderings were done by an outside consultant to really show you what that amenity area is going to look like, with the sculptures, benches, string lights, walking path, and beautiful landscaping throughout. Here is the front elevations for this new product. Again, you can't go look at it because this will be a first of its kind, but we're offering a mixture of brick, vertical siding, traditional siding, and there's stone elements in some of these elevations as well, here are some floor plans showing the large room size and showing that garage orientation. And again, our customers have access to our state-of-the-art design studio where they really get to add their personality and their
Now it's
value
really
to the
1 minute.
homes. So we're here seeking rezoning approval for the 3 matters before you, a public hearing, and we appreciate it. And we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your presentation.
Mr. Chair, does any of the commission members have questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Jackson.
I hear that right. Main Street is going to connect now under this plan all the way to 109.
We will be dedicating the right of way for when the city's project to connect Main Street can ultimately be completed. So that's part of our project, is providing the space and also, I believe, contributing TGA funds and whatnot to assist the city in that ultimate project.
So that will be a later thing, Mr. Vintage.
Actually, as part of any favorable action by the city, there'll be conditions associated with Main Street guaranteeing the dedication of additional right-of-way to accommodate at least a 70-foot right-of-way between both sides of existing Crestview Drive. We'll also want to guarantee that if McBride Barra Land Development, pardon me if I got that wrong, Land Company, have rights to Crestview Drive, they relinquish those rights to the city. And then there are some additional fees and charges that we'll have for the street as well.
Councilman Brost is.
Councilman LaBrosse.
Thank you. I guess I'm not sure if my questions are for the petitioner or Mr. Vunich, but I guess one question, and I respect everyone's property rights, but the one lot that's pending, that would be adjacent, to the city area that's not included. I guess at some point, I'd like to understand maybe where they're at, because I don't, that's a tough situation, but not, I'd just like to understand where they're at. The other item, and I don't know if we need I've asked this before, but with respect to the extension of Main Street and then this development, as well as the proposed developments on the south side of Crestview, if we as a city could put together like an aggregate virtual tour that would show a combination of the proposed developments. And I'm not sure if that requires some type of a motion. I'm assuming there'll be a cost involved, but I think it'd be really beneficial for planning and zoning and the city council to get an overall view as to, the extension of Main Street, which doesn't quite line up, as well as these several proposed developments, all of which I definitely want to support. So, Mr. Vunich, can you address the pending lot as well as my request?
Councilmember Brost, if you would allow, I'll answer your second question and then defer to Mrs. Moore on the other. But in regards to Main Street and what the developments on either side, including Village Green, the city project would look like, the city council did authorize the Department of Public Works to engage CDI, Civil Design Incorporated, to do planning for the extension of Main Street. And so tomorrow I'll talk with Mr. Brown, and well, Mr. Brown's on the screen, and we can see if we can do some type of rendering 3D model or something that would indicate what it's all going to look like if it all comes to fruition. Mr. Brown?
I would think, Joe, we could make that happen. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Broyles.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Pardon
Chair.
the interruption. Mr. Brost had the question regarding the status of those of the one lot.
I can answer that question, Mr. Chair. There are two properties adjacent to the assembled site that we presented tonight, and the lines of communication are open. So we've made contact, but that's all we can do at this point.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Broyles. You have a
Thank you,
question?
Mr. Chair. That's a really hurried way to go through it, and I know you were pressed for time. I'm hoping that I can back what Mr. Brose had to say as well. I think we need something that we need to go through this several times before we make a final decision. And I know this is new to you at McBride, and you've pondered over these pictures enormous amounts of time. But for us, we're receiving from our residents some questions that I think they need time to have answered as well. The number of cars that are going to be involved. And I noticed that one of your renderings had only one garage and then a parking space. And it doesn't appear, unless they park on Manchester, or excuse me, on the city street, where are their company going to be able to come? You don't have to answer that tonight, but I think we need to talk about the number of spaces that you have for cars. And that's all I have for right now. But I do implore you to make something available to us, and so that we can go through these diagrams several times before we make a final decision. Thank you.
Does the plan meet the parking requirements?
For the neighborhood general, yes.
Ms. Helfrey?
Yeah, I'm going to second what Mrs. Broyle said, and I would just like to know where the visitors of the homeowners are going to park their cars. So whether they met the parking requirements or not, it's the where. And so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The plan, for the commission's sake, the plan does show visitor parking spaces on the plan. That being said, we can submit to staff for distribution to be made part of the record after tonight's public hearing, some sort of more detailed public parking information, if that'll suit the commission.
You know the number of guest parking spaces?
275
For guests.
for guests.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, that includes the home parking. So that would be 144 guest parking spots not affiliated with the home garages. You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, just so the commission is aware, also the perimeter, that loop road is intended to be a little wider than what is normally required by the city, and there would be at least parking on one side of the loop road to accommodate guest parking as well as resident parking if needed.
So that's what, 26 point something feet?
Yes, and under fire district requirements, if it's over 26 feet, it can have parking on one side.
Excuse me, you said there's how much parking available in a count with the home too, right?
Yes, okay.
Help me do the math. I'm ready to get
Okay,
some math.
I was just corrected based on information I previously had. So the information I have is 275 spots, including the garages. The driveways, however, are not considered parking spaces in that equation.
That's where my math was getting.
Yes.
off. It's
So-
131 homes, right?
131 homes.
Well, 131 and you have 2 per home, that's 262. But you don't count the driveway, so you take 1 out, so you're back to 131.
275, including the guest lots and the garages only.
Okay.
And that right of way that Mr. Vunich was, or that roadway that Mr. Vunich was just speaking of. Yes, I think the engineer might be better at this one.
I'm a little slow, sir.
Thank you. For the record, my name's Mike Faulkner. I'm Vice President of Sterling Engineering. And to answer your question, we have 131 one-car garages. So we've got that. That 275 spaces includes that 131 spaces. That's what we have for the entire site. That's including the ring road or street A as it's shown on the plan. We've got parking on one side of the street, which is the outer ring of that. That's including how that parking included with each one of the driveways. There's 3 parking spaces at the end of each one of those driveways. And so if you add those up, plus we have some other parking that's out in front of the new amenity package. And we've got some additional parking off of that one main road that comes in off of Crestview. So that total sum is 275 parking.
I got you. So what's the size of the car that you're counting that there's 3 per outside of the driveway? You said there's 3, but it could be a little small car or it could be a truck.
No, they're standard parking. They're 9 by 19.
Okay. Thanks.
Any more questions? Oh, Commissioner Helfrich.
I just wanted to tell you all, I have a calculator and I did the math. And if you have 275 parking spots and 131 homes, there's 144 additional parking spaces, which was the answer to your question, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay. Any further comments from the commission? All right, I'll Ms. Stepler. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to kind of reiterate Councilman Brost's suggestion that with these multiple developments that are being proposed, it would be nice to have kind of a consolidated view of the impact of this particular proposed development plus the one that we were planning on discussing later today. It seems like there's a lot happening at once, and it'd be nice to have a consolidated view as he's suggested.
This time, Mr. Newberry, do we have any public cards?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. We have 2 speaker cards currently. The first is Mr. Parsons.
Good evening. I'm Stan Parsons. I'm the president of the Canterbury Square Homeowners Association. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and commission members. I appreciate the big advertisement and display that the McBride young lady put on, and I appreciate all of that, but a lot of that just went over the top of my head. We've been thinking about this for weeks. And I just want to get down to the basics. I mean, I'm here with my board members and I'm here with fellow homeowners and neighbors from our neighborhood. And they came here for a reason, because they're concerned. And let me talk about some of those concerns. My major concern is infrastructure. Starting out with Etherton Road. Etherton Road is nothing but a glorified bike path, pedestrian path, dogs, kids on their electric motor scooters, and all kinds of things. And there's no sidewalks. And there is a blind hill that if you go to get around a jogger or something, chances are you go head to head with another car on that particular point. Now, if you've been on Etherton Road, you're probably familiar with that. It's CrossFit people do their training on there and everything else. 25 miles an hour is the speed limit. Everybody goes about twice that. And so that's a problem as well. They don't pay attention to the speed limit. So that's Etherton Road. It's not sufficient for what we're talking about here, not in any way. It needs major improvements. It got resurfaced, but it didn't get widened and it didn't get sidewalks. And then we have Main Street. Main Street is new, but if you look at Main Street, the lanes are so narrow, you bounce off the curb going all the way up to get to Etherton. Why those lanes went in so small is just is unbelievable. So that's another problem. Canberry Lane will be a road feeding people to down to the BP station and onward. Canberry Lane and Etherton Road that's a tiny little, it's not really even an intersection, it's just a turning point. Anyway, but that's the road business. Main Street, I don't know what you can do about that at this point. It's kind of new and just been put in. Water. I don't think anybody realizes here that and I've lived here 7 years, and I obviously live in Canberry. American Water has slowly eased back on the water pressure over a long period of time, and they've done it slowly. And my neighbors can confirm that. What's happening to our water pressure? What kind of water do we have for 131 homes? Whatever number of homes are going on the west side of 109 and so forth, all these homes that we're putting in here, but the pressure gets eased back ever so slightly, but you end up noticing it in the long run. So we have that problem. American Electricity or Ameren Electricity. You get a 12-knot wind, goodbye, your electricity goes out. That's been ever since I've lived here. I don't know what they're doing to fix it. I know they're on Old Manchester with their bucket trucks every day. I don't know if that's something they're trying to do to correct that. But again, these things are infrastructure to me. Trash collection. We cannot get trash collection correct on a regular basis. And now our current trash collection outfit is very persnickety. They're like, well, it's got to be an approved container. I have a small home with a 2-car garage filled up with trash containers. Well, I went and got a smaller one because we don't have as much trash. And I put our recycle in a contractor bag and I set them out at the street. The current trash collection company doesn't like it being in a bag for my recycle. So I put it all in the trash container, my small trash container. How are you going to park cars? And that's a big issue. And I totally agree. How are you going to park cars with a single garage, a single driveway, and then Katie bar the door where anybody else wants to park if they come visit you? And then and you know they're going to park in the street. When they park in the street, what's going to happen with trying to do snow removal during the wintertime with all the cars in the street? I want to know about the fire department officials and if they've signed off on these tremendous neighborhoods, 100+ homes here, 100+ homes over there, if they've signed off on it, if they have the infrastructure for them to be able to respond. Yes, sir. Thank you. And last but not least, I want to know what's going to happen to our home values. And we're all concerned with that. So anyway, I thank you for your time, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you for your questions. They're very valid. Another speaker card, Mr. Navarro.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. No, the next speaker card is for Mr. St. Ange.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Department. Thank you very much for the opportunity to get to speak this evening. Appreciate it. My name is Charles St. Ange. I'm a CCIM. This evening, I am representing Dale and Judy Friedolf, who reside at 2400 Etherton Road. This property is located adjoining this development, and it would be in the northwest corner, that little piece that wasn't acknowledged in the showing. I come to you with this humble request. I would ask that for considerations that you would include this 2400 Etherton Road property into the Crestview development this evening. Although the Crestview project features many attributes that would improve the city, looks very nice, I would ask that the inclusion of this property for the 2400 Etherton Road also be considered for a variety of reasons. The highlights of these reasons include, but not limited to, the following. The complete redefining of a subdivision area with newer homes, but yet allowing a corner pocket adjoining this development with a 1950s D+ rated home and outbuildings and a Quonset hut, as shown by St. Louis County, just seems to be a little bit of a miss to me. Based upon what I saw of the subdivision plans, January 10th, 2023, in the preliminary hearing, the older style home in question does not quite fit the overall redefining of this area. Hence the request to include this project, this 2400 Etherton Road in the project. One of the topics that was also brought up at the January 10th, 2023 meeting was the concern of the rental of these units. 2400 Etherton Road, this property adjoining the subdivision would not be bound by any trust indentures. So obviously these folks would be able to rent that home, which I know was a concern with regards to some of the folks that were at that meeting and considering that meeting. The ongoing maintenance of the property could also be a future topic of contention since the site is not included within the subdivision maintenance guidelines. Further, the location of this property being situated on Etherton Road and along the adjoining walking trail, aesthetically speaking, may not provide a visual harmony that blends well with the new development. The additional outbuildings, as well as the current landscape, isn't really symmetrical with what they're doing here. So that could be an eyesore down the line. I understand the buzzwords, keynote project, hallmark community, unique, exciting, all of that for this project. It looks great. It does. It's fine. I just think they missed one little piece over there. And I really would look to you folks to perhaps consider to include that. I guess the other item that I can reference here is, as I read the P&Z bylaws in Article 1 of the powers, duties, procedures, and policies under Section E, it allows P&Z to approve with conditions. So perhaps this property could be a condition. Also for reference, if Friedhoffs are willing to sell their property, as they were approached by McBride in the past about the opportunity, they simply want to be compensated enough so they can go out and replace what they have an outbuilding, and what was offered was not going to do it, not in this Wildwood area. So that's where we're at. I understand the lines of communication are open between those parties, but there needs to be compensation that these folks can go buy another house. Oh, I appreciate your time, your consideration. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer for you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more speaker cards?
Mr. Chair, the department has not received any additional speaker cards for this item. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Heinman. I live at 17058 Cambry Lane. I'm also on the HOA board there. And really, to piggyback on what Stan said, I'm generally okay with a project on that location. I'm fine with something that's high density, those types of things. The objections I have are, as you do the math on the parking, there's 131 units. So garages, single family, I think, or single stall, I think they should be 2. And then there's one place to park, another 131 in the driveway. It leaves 13 spots for guests. most homes will have 2 cars, 2 people. So you can't just count that out as extra for guests. I've heard that these are going to be rental. I've heard that Wildwood does not want another apartment complex kind of in this area, which is essentially what this is going to be. I think the pictures are beautiful. It's great. But, we're looking at putting an apartment complex on Crestview is the way it looks to me. Stan's correct. Our water pressure is down in Cambry. We thought it was just our home. As we talked to our neighbors, they're all experiencing the same thing. And, that's, to me, that's become a huge issue. The garbage thing, you guys will figure that out. Right now, it's a huge thing. And then just generally, I think it's a good project if they fix some of this parking stuff and add another garage and do some things. But it's a little bit just too dense. It's too dense. Maybe, 95, maybe 100 units instead of 131. The parking's an issue. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. For clarification, this last speaker mentioned these were rental properties. I thought they were fee simple ownership. I didn't hear the answer. Are these homes for rent or for sale?
These are all single family fee simple homes like you buy any home. It's not for rental. McBride doesn't build rental units, and our standard community HOA indentures prohibit any rentals for under a year. And we've already spoken with city staff and your committee about being willing to put a percentage of some sort that we work out in our indentures as well, saying only X amount of the units could even have a long-term lease. Personal property rights being the way they are, we don't allow Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rentals, but our indentures currently say a year or more a property owner can do. But these are going to be bought by home buyers, not leased.
Thank you for your clarification.
Mr. Chair, there was a proposal before our Development and Zoning Review Committee on the south side of Crestview Drive in the same general vicinity. That was presented by TB Development and Benton Homes, and those all were to be rentals.
Thank you. I guess that give no more speaker cards. Any discussion from the commission? Motion to close. Oh, do you have a response? One more. Oh, I'm sorry. Please bring your card forward.
My name is Debbie Donaldson. I live at 17016 Canberry Lane. One of my questions for McBride is how large will the one stall garage be? Because there is an issue with larger vehicles, trucks, pickup trucks, and large SUVs. So that would be a really important consideration concerning parking.
Can we allow the petitioner to answer that question?
Certainly, if the commission would like to have the petitioner's representative come back up and respond to any of the questions, it might.
Please.
And I do have one other after with this one too, as well. The HOA. I understand how HOAs work because I am in real estate. And so McBride will function as having the majority on the HOA. How long will it take? How many units have to be sold until the HOA is represented by the majority of residents as well? That's my second question.
Will the petitioner's representative please do their best to really answer the questions that were brought forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can answer a handful of them, and then I'll turn it over to our project engineer to get into some of the infrastructure related questions very briefly. So one question we had first was about property value. That was one of the ones I can answer. I spoke with our president this afternoon and I asked him, what are our anticipated sales prices here? What are we looking for here? And he said he believes the average sale price will be in the mid 4s to 5s. So this is not a property value injuring project. And again, these are all single family homes to be owned by individuals, all 131 of them. The next question that I'm able to answer again is the rental. These are not rentals. They're all being sold to individuals. The garage sizes will be 10 by 20, which from hearing our project engineer speak earlier, that's larger than a standard parking place to accommodate individual vehicles. Let's see. And then the other question or discussion point I can discuss is turnover. City of Wildwood has very specific declaration requirements, and we always comply with those for resident turnover. As I stand here right now, I don't know what Wildwoods are, but it's when you sell a percentage of homes, you turn over the director spots to the homeowners. And that is our process, and that's what we're required to comply with. And then regarding the property at the corner of Etherton, we have assembled 9 parcels with 8 different people. We valued the property in the same way for Mr. St. Ange's clients, and we were rejected. So we can't zone and include in our project a piece of property we cannot purchase. However, like I said, the lines of communication remain open. And if that circumstance would change, of course, we'd be happy to have a talk. Other than that, the infrastructure related questions about roads,
Right, just
water.
Before you go to that, we talk about the garage.
Yes.
Parking stalls basically come in 2 sizes, 9 by 19 and 10 by 20. 10 by 20 is what you would normally see like in a commercial lot. But for a garage, yeah, you can open the doors, but that's about it.
All of these homes, sir, will come with full basements as well. So, I mean, there's no limit on storage being a concern. And we found that our 1-car garage products, although this is a brand new product, that there's a market for them.
Mr. Chair, I'll try to answer some of the infrastructure questions that the residents have posed. I guess one of the first ones is I personally met with Rod Cook, who's fire marshal at Metro West. We met with him and with their inspector. We went over the development completely, and Mr. Cook did not, nor did the inspector have any issues with the development. In fact, they were very happy and very pleased with how we designed the development and the loop road. And there was a lot of discussions, and as we reached out to him and sent him a backup memo based on what our conversations were after the meeting, and we got a response from him saying everything was exactly the way it was set up. But to make sure that everybody's their concerns, to answer their concerns, we did meet with the fire department. Fire department is happy with the development and how it was designed. Now, as far as water, of course, water is one of the big issues with fire also. With this development, we're going to do is connect, there's an existing 12-inch main that's at the terminus here at Town Center. That will be extended along Crestview up to and connect into Main Street where there's an existing 12-inch main. So what this is going to do is actually increase water pressure and provide more water, because we'll be connecting 2 12-inch mains now. We'll be actually connecting that loop. Internal of this development will be a complete looped 8-inch system. And both those were brought up to the fire marshal, and the fire marshal was very happy with what we're proposing to do. So as far as water and fire, I think that those questions are addressed. Now, as far as Etherton Road, and I'll yield to Joe and Rick, this is a project that the city is working on that will increase or widen and improve Etherton Road, I believe, from Manchester all the way to its terminus of Etherton. So, as far as that, we'll be providing necessary right-of-way or whatever else the city may deem necessary for the Etherton Road. So I think that will probably take care of that. And as far as addressing the Main Street, reason those streets were so narrow is to try and provide traffic calming.
I just have a quick question. So the water, you mentioned the fire, which that part of the water, but what about the home? Have you done a study on the water pressure for homes? So I think what you were saying, and I'm not sure, but when you talk to the fire marshal, that there was ample water for them to put out a fire or something from a hydrant, or were you saying no? Like the homeowners have concerns where their water pressure is going down. If you build something new and it hooks up to that main line, is there going to be a problem with Missouri American Water?
We've talked with Missouri American, and Missouri American has not expressed any issues. Because of connecting the two 12-inch mains, that's going to provide a lot more pressure and a lot more volume of water to the area. So everybody should see a benefit.
Okay, so my only response to that, Mr. Vintage, is just get that in writing from Missouri American Water. And if you can add to the record how pleased the fire marshal is with this project as well. As he says, and that the fire marshal supports this project, that could be entered into the record as well. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, obviously before the department prepares a report with recommendation, we'll verify all of those components.
Thank you.
Mr.
Frank, you had mentioned the 3-car parking on the drive or near the drive.
It's at the end of each one of the driveways. Travis, is there any way you can put up our site plan?
Yeah, I'm just struggling with the visual of that. And I guess what I'm thinking about is that some of the spots going to be in a position so that a car could leave the garage without having to relocate some of the parked vehicles.
Kind of hard to see with that. If you've got how about our site plan? Oh, you don't? Well, if you look at this rendering at the very end, so there you go. As you come up, you can see, if you can show that, that's where see the 3 parking spaces at the end of each one of those drive aisle. Those are guest parking spots for each one of those pod areas. Then, now keep in mind too, that long loop road, there's parking that's available all along the outer rim of that, which will be parking. The inner rim will be marked with no parking signs. That was a request of the fire marshal. And keep in mind too, that this main road, that loop road there, it's 32 foot wide. So it's not 26 foot wide, it's 32 foot wide. So that you can have parking and still have enough space for fire marshal or the fire trucks to get through there, or anybody else to get through there safely.
Fine. Commissioner Helfrey, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to know about the trees. When you showed the aerial view of all of the lots together, several of the lots seems to be currently, they appear to be heavily wooded or a lot of trees on them. And I'm just curious, has anybody done a tree study to see what it would be removed and how they would plan to replace those according to the drawings that they have? That's it.
We did. We had a tree stand delineation that's part of the package.
And what did it determine? I didn't see it in there. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes, sir.
at this stage, we've asked for the information. We haven't yet made a recommendation. If the recommendation were favorable, then we'll go into depth, making the determinations if grand trees are impacted, the overall coverage of the existing woodlands, and how best to address those if the project were to move forward.
Okay. One of the things I'm curious about on the, if we are able to go back to the drawing that we just had, and I apologize, but when you drive down 100 right now, it looks very wooded, or, you know, it's kind of private there. And so what would the view be? Will that the top part there of the drawing, would that still be tree screening? It looks like there's still trees. Okay, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe there might be some more speakers. Is that correct? And then
Good evening. I'm Mark Latham. I live at 2421 Lark Song Drive. My wife and I moved here 6.5 years ago. Main Street wasn't there yet. There were still trees. Brightleaf wasn't there either. There was a lot of trees over there too. I was always told, and Wildwood was all about green space. I've talked to the mayor, and the mayor came by the house for reelection. We talked about the amount of homes over on Main Street. We talked about the homes over on Brightleaf. I know the city has recently put money out for more trees to try to help with sound. It's the volume of cars on Manchester that's the problem. And we're going to add how many more here. That's there's no rhyme to reason to some of this stuff that's going in, and it just doesn't seem to stop. There's no additional things north of the roundabouts on 109 or south. Then the amount of traffic is just keeps growing. Also, they were talking about the streets. Taylor Road can't handle this kind of traffic and is not designed to handle this kind of traffic either. I sure hope the commission takes some of this into account, and we can have a good outcome on this. Thank you.
thank you. We have another speaker. Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Don Gay. I live at 2409 Loxong Drive in Canberra. I just want to make it very plain that we have a parking problem now in Canberra. We have large two-car garages, and we have limited parking in front of each unit, each of the units there. But the parking problem is already very large. And I can almost guarantee you that most of the people that buy these homes in this new development will have two cars. Most all of them will. And so you've got a garage that holds one car, a driveway that holds one car, and there's going to be a lot of parking on the street. And this is just going to contribute to the problem that we already have existing in Canberra. The other thing I wanted to mention, I'll be very brief, is again the noise problem that we have already, particularly emanating from the roundabouts down there. Not so much the roundabouts, but Manchester Road, going underneath the bridge there at 109. It's tremendous, especially on Friday nights and Saturday nights, and some other nights during the summer. So I wish you would take all this into consideration, and the amount of traffic that we're going to have, that we have now, and we're going to have later, is just going to contribute to it. The density of this project is tremendous. Going to be tremendous. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Village, I would ask, has a traffic study been completed and submitted for this project?
We have not yet requested a traffic impact study of this particular project. Certainly, it is something that the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning can discuss after tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Any more speaker cards, Mr. Newberg?
I have not received any, Mr. Chair.
And any more questions from the commission? A motion to close?
I make a motion to close.
We have a motion to close by Commissioner Clayton. Do we have a second? Oh, damn it. Commissioner Broyles. You have a question? Are you seconding the motion? Oh, sure, second. All right, thank you. Can we have a voice vote? All in favor to close, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? This hearing's closed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Item is, my glasses, is PZ 20 through 20, PZ 20 to 22 and PZ 21 and 22. And for this particular reading, Ms. Helfrey, would you please take over my position as chair?
Absolutely. Mr. Vunich, would you or Travis like to read PZ 2022 into the record?
Madam Chair, Mr. Newberry will do that for us.
Thank you.
If we could wait for a moment to the crowd clears before we start, so we can hear each other.
Okay.
If everyone could please take their conversations outside, a little respect. Okay, I think it's quiet enough. We can proceed. Ms. Helfrey, if you would take over, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Newberry, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Madam Chair. PZ 20-22 Greenberg Development Company LLC, Wildwood GBK LLC, PO Box 486, Wildwood, Missouri 63038. A request for the modification of the Town Center Regulating Plan for a 4.6 acre tract of land that is currently designated by it as Workplace District to the Neighborhood General District to accommodate its use for a maximum of 11 single-family detached dwellings on individual lots and associated parking areas. Street address 16795 Manchester Road, St. Louis County, locator number 24V630312, northwest corner of the Manchester Road and Taylor Road intersections, Ward 8. PZ 21-22 Greenberg Development Company LLC, Wildwood GBK LLC, PO Box 486, Wildwood, Missouri 63038. A request for a change in zoning for a total of five properties that are currently designated either amended C8 Planned Commercial District, street addresses 16720 and 16780 Main Street, St. Louis County, locator numbers 23V310581 and 23V310561, C8 Planned Commercial District, street address 16700 Main Street, St. Louis County, locator number 23V310570, and NU Non-Urban Residence District, street addresses 16795 and 16727 Manchester Road, St. Louis County, locator numbers 24V630303 and 24V630312 to the second amended C8 Planned Commercial District. Street addresses 16720 and 16780 Main Street, St. Louis County, locator numbers 23V310581 and 23V310561. Amended C8 Planned Commercial District and C8 Planned Commercial District, including a conditional use permit. Street addresses 16700 Main Street and 16795 and 16727 Manchester Road, St. Louis County, locator numbers 23V310570, 24V630312, and 24V630303. All in association with an overall tract of land that is 11.8 acres, which would thereby authorize a mixed-use development in the city's town center area, such to be located on the west side of Taylor Road between Main Street and Manchester Road. Proposed uses, all C2 shopping district permitted and conditional uses, a maximum of 189 multiple family units, and a maximum of 11 single-family detached dwellings on individual lots, along with public space, pickleball courts and others, stormwater management facilities, and parking areas. Ward 8.
Thank you, Travis. You take a breath. Mr. Vunich, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, for your consideration tonight, the Department of Planning has prepared the draft letter of recommendation that now reflects the action of the Planning and Zoning Commission relative to this set of requests that occurred on March 6th of 2023. As the Planning and Zoning Commission members may recall, on that day, March 6, 2023, the commission recommended granting the conditional use permit and the change to the regulating plan, and recommended favorably for the rezoning of the properties to accommodate what Mr. Newberry has just described in reading into the record. That vote was 8-0 with one abstention. The draft letter of recommendation does reflect a few modifications based upon conversations with petitioner's engineer. They relate to unit type. We've added studio and 3-bedroom type units now. The height of the single-family dwellings from 2 to 3 stories. And then finally, just refinements on the setbacks, both for the 4-story building and the single-family detached dwellings on individual lots. Those are identified in attachment B by blue bolded type. Again, this particular letter of recommendation in draft form is ready for final action tonight. And if there are any questions, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Mayor Boland?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I would motion that we move forward with the department's recommendation to approve the plan as presented with its modifications.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Chair
second that
Boyle?
motion.
Any discussion? Okay, I guess we'll do a roll call vote, please, Travis. Oh, wait, Mrs. Depler, Chair Depler.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in and just kind of follow up on what Councilman Brost had mentioned before about potentially consolidating discussions around this development along with what was just presented in the public hearing. Is that applicable at this point, or is that ship kind of sailed? Since I wasn't here last week, I apologize. Or last month.
Mr. Vunich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commission Member Depler, this particular project is located at the intersection of Taylor Road and Main Street. So both of those town center streets have been completed in terms of final improvements for an extended period of time. Also, on the north side of Main Street from the subject tract, we have the 2-story building that's part of Wildwood Town Center, the Coleman Properties Project. And to the east, to the west, immediately to the west is the B&B Theater. So for all intents and purposes, the development pattern as well as the infrastructure has been set for some period of time at this location. Certainly, there are renderings that were provided by the petitioner. It kind of gives you an idea of what everything's going to look like relative to the apartments and the other buildings, except the single-family detached dwellings, which again, there has not been a builder that has been picked or stepped forward to take that particular component of the project. To summarize, Ms. Depler, I think we have a pretty good idea of what it's all going to look like based upon what's there.
So, Mr. Vunich, I have a question for you. If there hasn't been a builder that stepped up to take on that part of the project, the single family detached homes, what happens?
Well, the zoning would remain unchanged. It still would require no more than 11 home sites at that particular location in the project. If no developer came forward, it would be an area that would be graded, ground cover established, but there is a need to proceed forward with its use because it contains Eastgate Lane as well as components of the stormwater management plan.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can we do a roll call vote, please, Travis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Abstain.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Chair Helfrey,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Thank you.
Before I hand the reins back over to Chair Cohn, Mayor Boland, would you like to speak?
Go ahead.
You're muted.
Sorry, there you
There you
go. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. And relative to the question that was presented by Commissioner Depler on the heels of Councilmember Gross, if the rest of the commission would be okay with it, I don't see why, Joe, you couldn't provide all of us with the traffic data, parking data, and so forth that relates to this, so that we can just get refreshed on that. I know that the study on that has already been done, but I think it might be helpful, should any member of the commission have any questions from anyone, to have that data in hand, if you could recirculate that.
Very much so, Mr. Mayor. I'd be glad to get that traffic study back out to everyone.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that, Mr. Vinich? I was taking what notes I could when we were listening to all those people talking earlier, and quite a bit of it was based around traffic. And so I think that I heard that the traffic study for the development that we just got done with the public hearing about had not been done. Is that correct?
That's correct, ma'am. The Crestview project by McBride Homes has not yet provided a traffic impact study. Mr. Brown and I have had preliminary discussions, but we did not make a decision, and certainly wanted to hear public comment tonight before we do ask for something of that nature.
Okay, because it seems to me that these two projects are going to materially, assuming that they both go forward, are going to materially change the traffic situation in the town center. And that was when I took a tally, it looked like that was the number one concern. And so I'm wondering if there's a way that we could do a comprehensive look at it rather than just piecemeal, so that when we sit here and have to vote on these things, we're a little better informed. If that makes any sense.
Very much so, Ms. Helfrey. And as you'll recall, when we updated the town center plan, which began in 2018 and ended in 2021, the volunteer committee that oversaw that process requested that we do a traffic analysis of the entire town center. That was done by H.R. Green. And we had H.R. Green not only look at all of the town center streets in their current condition and under an improvement scenario, but we also had them look out 20 years to see what we should be aware of as we move forward through that span of time. Mr. Brown has appeared magically on the screen, and I would probably defer to him to kind of complete any of a response to your question, madam.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Joe. I guess the one point I would make, Commissioner Helfrey, is that assuming a traffic study was done for the McBride development for Crestview, they would essentially have to consider this project and the impacts of this project in addition to theirs, essentially, because this would be considered an existing condition at that point. So I would say that would be done then when they do a traffic study, presuming they do one for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does. Yes, and I appreciate you saying that. Mr. Boland, did you have something to say, Mayor Boland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Really, Rick just said what I was going to mention, which is that I think we have to assume that our Department of Planning and Public Works will take into account the approval of this development, whether it's the one we just had the hearing about tonight or any other future one, relative to traffic and so forth. So I think we just have a little faith in them for that, but certainly we look forward to the traffic studies, that are required of all those. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Cohn, I'm handing it back.
Okay, I believe next is PZ 16-22, and Mr. Newberry, I believe you're going to read that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. PZ 16-22, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040. A request to review amendments to regulations and requirements contained in Chapter 415 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, pertaining to roof-mounted solar panels or other roof-mounted solar energy systems within the residential zoning districts, R districts, and the NU non-urban residence district, including but not limited to their installation in a manner where they are visible from an adjoining or adjacent roadway, and the procedures for their approval, all wards.
Does the department have any open remarks?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight the draft letter of recommendation that now reflects the action of the Planning and Zoning Commission at its last meeting on the set of new regulations to be applied to solar energy systems in the city of Wildwood. As the commission may recall, with the assistance of the city attorney, the city is proposing to change how solar energy systems are considered and where they can be placed. The regulations are a departure from what's been in place for the most part since 2014 and now include definitions, descriptions of building integrated systems, eliminates ground-mounted types, and sets forth standards for the disposal of solar energy systems on end of life. And then finally, eliminates the conditional use permit process before the Planning and Zoning Commission and requires the Department of Planning to review all applications and make decisions from that point. The vote on this particular matter at the March meeting was 7-1 to support the regulations as presented. The city attorney was asked to consider an escrow process relative to recycling or disposal of solar panels. And I believe he has a verbal response tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, we reviewed any possibility or legality of the city imposing such a escrow requirement. And at this time, we are not recommending moving forward with that suggestion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, with that, if there are any other questions from the commission, we'd be glad to proceed, be glad to try to answer them at this time.
Mr. Jackson.
I can wait for questions. I was gonna make a motion to approve, but I'll wait.
All right, Commissioner Broyles, I believe you have a question. You're on mute. No question. Commissioner Broyles. Commissioner Helpfree.
Okay. I have some people send some questions to me. One of the questions was, will these panels, what about homes that are not, the front facing of the home is not visible at all by anyone? I guess they're talking about in rural areas. How will this apply to them? And I personally have a question about the trees. I know that I'm beating a dead horse, but what I don't want to happen is for us to approve anything and then let somebody come in the back door and take down trees that they've decided are blocking their solar panels. Because that's what we've told these people in these neighborhoods. You have street trees, you're required to have them, or your neighborhood has them. And how does that affect those houses? So that's all I have, and I thank you for your time.
Well, relative to the review of applications for solar energy systems, those will no longer proceed to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission is being diminished, if not eliminated. That will rest now primarily with the Department of Planning, and in certain instances, the Architectural Review Board or the Board of Adjustment. That is what the new regulations stipulate. As you know, our old regulations did address tree removal in conjunction with the installation of solar energy systems. The city attorney and other attorneys in his office were able to carry those over and I believe strengthen them as well. So from the department's perspective, we'll still keep a keen eye on tree removal. And if tree removal does occur after the fact, when intended to be preserved, it's a basically enforcement issue. I think it's important to note that we are not prohibiting front-facing installations, but quite frankly, what we're asking them to be is integrated into the structure itself so as they are distinguishable, so to speak, from what would normally be seen on the front of any typical dwelling. And I think that's a key component of the recommended changes, is that there's still an option, but that option requires the companies and the property owners to think a little harder about how they do it and how best to achieve it.
Mayor Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a question before I decide whether to make a statement, and this is probably for the city attorney. John, is it the case that if there is, to follow up on Commissioner Helfrich's question, if there are trees or a tree that would shield the front-facing solar panel, that what we now consider to be the traditional non-integrated solar panel could be placed
You cut out there.
on the front of the home? Is that a correct statement or not?
Mayor, you froze there, but I think I got the gist of your question, so I'm going to attempt to answer. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I will say that the code as proposed expressly states that any front-facing building mounted, so this is not the integrated, this is the traditional, what we've seen, building mounted, may be on a front if it is completely and totally screened from public view from the front. If someone intends to use a tree as part of that screening, that tree or those trees have to be identified on a site plan. And if any of those trees become damaged or are removed, there has to be a plan to replace them.
Commissioner Broyle.
Yes, thank you. I think this message is for Joe. When we finally get the amendments and the regulations, requirements and everything all written up, can we have an individual copy of that so that we know what we're speaking about when we talk to residents, when they start asking questions, or do we just always refer them to you?
Certainly, we'll be glad to provide you a set of the regulations in a format that we hope will be user-friendly.
To the residents as well.
Well, certainly, we'll do our best to get information out to the solar providers, those installers, so they can see what we're basically requiring as a city now. We'll get information to you as commission members, but as always, if there are questions that you don't feel comfortable answering or would prefer the city to answer, you can send them to the department.
Well, we have had a host of people coming forward, and I know they're looking forward to this as well, so that they know how to proceed, the residents. Thank you.
Mayor Boland.
Yes, my apology. I lost my connection. Hopefully, we're going to be fixing that soon. So, City Attorney Young, I didn't hear your answer. If you could please repeat that. I'm sorry to ask you for that again.
No problem, Mayor. The answer that I gave is that the proposed code requires that any front-facing building-mounted solar panel be completely and totally screened from public view from public right-of-way. And if trees are going to be relied upon for that screening, they have to be identified on a site plan. And should they be damaged to where they are no longer screening, some means of screening has to be presented within 30 days. So they would have to essentially either replace the tree or provide some other method of screening within 30 days of that tree either being damaged or removed.
Okay.
I'd like to. Go ahead, Mayor. I thought you were finished.
That's it. Thank you for the question or the answer. Appreciate it.
You mentioned like a tree that's used for screening that have to be replaced. And I think back earlier this evening, the request for solar panel in the front of the home, and they referenced oak trees. On my home, I have an oak tree, by the way, with no leaves on it as of today. That must be probably close to 100 years old. How would someone replace that type of screening when you have a tree of that magnitude? It's absolutely a grand tree. How could you screen solar panels and still satisfy the code?
Well, certainly from the department's perspective, you can't. There's not a tree you can buy that will replicate what 100 years of growth has provided on your property. Certainly from the department's perspective, if these regulations are ultimately adopted by city council, the approach would be is not to necessarily depend too much on trees for the screening purposes for the front facing panels that might be installed. They're not necessarily a transitory approach, but certainly distance, grade, slope, placement of the home, those are things that are more tangible and will stay in place for a longer period of time than, let's say, a tree. Let's say someone had ash trees. Now we're removing all ash trees because of the emerald ash borer. So it's just not something that we're taking into account and certainly will play a role, but we will not prioritize it as the single key component to whether a system is allowed or not.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you. Any other question, Commissioner Jackson?
Just for a visual, and it's your prerogative not to answer it because it's pending. The solar item in the public hearing, would that have passed under this? The way it was presented, would it be approved?
Based upon my review of the regulations, I do not believe so.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Mayor Boland, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If Commissioner Jackson was going to make a motion, I would second it.
Yeah, I will make the motion to approve as recommended.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. I believe we'd have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey voted yes. Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
No.
Ms. Depler, just to confirm, was that a no?
Correct. No.
Thank you. Sorry, the sound's not coming through. Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Chair Cohn,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
That is approved.
Okay. Next would be PZ. That's what, oh, sorry. Councilman Rose, you have a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering with, like Cindy, why'd you vote no? I'm always curious.
I mean, I understand that, concerns like the people have discussed today, but I probably have twice as many people that have come to me and not wanting the restrictions on the front facing. I understand how things are right now with the technology are, still not up to the standards that we would prefer. But I think in the near future, we are going to have products that will be acceptable and will be shown to not impact the property value on the homes. And, I just would like to have that option available for those people who want that technology for their homes.
And I guess if I can jump in here, but by passing this evening does not prohibit us from reviewing it again in the future. And I do, like, I have solar on my home, so I'm in favor of it. But I think as technology changes, we can adapt to it. And the analogy I make because with people with the solar is that if we had a resident that didn't have a backyard, but they wanted a swimming pool, is it okay to put it in the front yard? And, it's sort of like, maybe not. I mean, so there's just, we have a tough job, but it's just a tough job. But I would hope that if 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we can go back and continue to, revise and adapt to technology. Because again, my home's very energy efficient. I've got solar, geothermal, I've got it all. So I'm very much in favor of it, but I think we also have to listen to the people that I would never have put it on my home if I had to have it on the front. It would not be there. So, all right. Thank you. Thanks, Cindy, too.
Appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Mayor Boland, did you have another comment? Mayor, your hand's raised.
Yes. and
You're on
just to-
mute.
Yep. Just to tag on to Councilmember Brost's response there. Yeah, I too have geothermal. I'm very much in favor of anything that's energy efficient. I would expect every member of this commission is. And as he noted, just as we're doing tonight, it's fluid and we can always alter the rules as needed with technology. But one thing to put this in perspective, I just wanted to mention, and City Attorney Young can comment on this if he wants to give us a list. This is actually, in my opinion, a very generous policy. There are cities that flat out prohibit this, period. There is no debate about shielded trees or anything else. You can't do it. And we've reached a road that we'll see how it works, but I think I'm comfortable with, and obviously the large majority of the commission is that is not as restrictive as that. So I think to put it into perspective, that's something that it would be good for all of us to keep in mind. But certainly, Commissioner Depler, I, as always, appreciate your comments on this, and I know there are multiple views on it, but I think this strikes a balance that for the moment, as Commissioner Brost said, it is a good one. So thanks to all of you for your comments, votes, and so forth.
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, I just want to say, I've looked around. There's not a lot of cities that are being as progressive as we are yet accommodating in the nation, especially the environmental impact, right? Some of these panels have lead and et cetera, the proper disposal of them for the environment, the proper disposal of batteries, right? As we move in, and as technology changes, it should get better. I'm all for being green, but at what cost? There was a time where we were in an industrial revolution, and there's a Fishpot Creek that runs through Baldwin that had chemicals dumped in it because no one cared, and there was no regulations on it, or Times Beach down the way. Now you have little small areas of solar if they're not properly disposed of, right? And let's hope things get better. But I think we're leading the way. There's not a lot of cities in the country doing this, and it's a national problem that's yet to rear its ugly head. So I commend everyone, and I respect Mrs. Depler for sure, because she's also correct. The technology will get better. Thanks.
Okay, I believe Mr. Newberry is ready for PZ 5-21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. PZ 5-21, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040. The request for the Planning and Zoning Commission to conduct a comprehensive review of, then consider potential changes to City of Wildwood's Municipal Code, Chapter 410, Tree Preservation and Restoration Code, and its associated Landscape Manual and Sustainable Plantings Guide, for the purposes of ensuring such are consistent with current techniques reflective of best practices and accomplish the goals and objectives of the master plan of the City of Wildwood, all wards.
Mr. Vunich, if you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as with the past couple of items, the Department of Planning has prepared for your consideration the draft version of the letter of recommendation relating to the city's tree preservation and restoration code. As the commission is aware, the city has had a tree preservation and restoration code since February of 1996. There have been sporadic updates to it, but in this particular instance, the request from the commission was to do an overall review and update accordingly. Tonight, you are seeing a set of regulations that have been through the review of two arborists, the Missouri Department of Conservation, our city attorney, as well as the Departments of Planning and Public Works. At the last meeting, there was a request to review the definition associated with one of the items, and that item related to the grand tree stand. The department sent that particular definition to Mark Halpin with Davy Resource Group. He is also the individual that assisted in the review of the existing tree preservation and restoration code. Mr. Halpin provided a response via email. I wouldn't say there were a lot of words associated with it, but he said it was acceptable. And so tonight, this draft is in the appropriate form for final action by the Planning and Zoning Commission. If there are any questions, the city attorney and the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Mayor Boland, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I'm the one who raised the concern about the definition of a grand tree stand. And my specific concern was the lack of specificity of the diameter or perimeter, take your pick, of the stand. As it was written at the time, and as I still see it tonight, someone could say that I see a grouping of 6 grand trees that have a 12-inch DBH or greater, and they're in an area of 100 feet of circumference. They're in an area of 20 feet of circumference. And so unless the city, and I understand and respect the arborist view of the definition, but from a legal standpoint, I think it's a very slippery slope because it leads to subjectivity as to what the extent of that stand is. So unless the city attorney has some reason why I shouldn't do this, I'm going to make another motion to postpone until we have greater definition of that particular term. So
No objection to that, Mayor.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we postpone again for the same reason as last time.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Commissioner Broyles, you had your hand raised. That was just a second. Understand? Any
Mr. Chair.
discussion?
Certainly, the department was hoping that this particular item would be addressed through the arborist comments. So I would just ask the mayor or the city attorney for some assistance in understanding what needs to be added.
So if John, Joe, that's if you and John and the arborist want to work together, send a copy of it to me. I'm happy to look at it before the next meeting or the meeting after, whenever you all want to get this. I didn't put a time on the motion, so with the consent of everyone, I would say that within the next 90 days, that'll give us a couple of commission meetings that the motion to postpone would be in place for this particular item. And I'm not necessarily at this point married to a specific circumference. I just think there needs to be one, and we can talk about that once we get it. But without it, as I said previously, I think it's not good to go forward with this. So anyway, so if there's no objection, that would be the motion, up to 90 days to come back with more specificity on the circumference or the perimeter of a grand tree stand as a definition.
Mr. Chair, with your permission. Mr. Mayor, I think we can do it in less than 90 days, and hopefully that will be the case. And I think now I understand you're not necessarily talking about the individual trees or the group of 6, just how that all affects in an area. So you're looking at something more so if it is a wildlife habitat, a soil stabilization area, or an aesthetic component, that there's some number of feet associated with that radius. Am I correct?
I'm looking at, I think my answer would be all the above. I'm looking for specificity relative to a grand tree stand with regard to whatever other variables you and the city attorney and potentially the arborist think need to be worked into that. So for example, having 6 grand trees within 2 feet of each other might sound great, but that's probably a bad idea. They're all going to die because they don't have enough room to expand. But having 6 grand trees within a mile of each other doesn't mean anything. So between those two, we'll wait to see what you all come up with.
I understand now. Thank you.
We have a motion, first and second. Do we do a roll call vote, Mr. Newberry?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, we can do a roll call vote, but for a motion to postpone can be a voice vote as well.
Let's do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Currently, we have, Mr. Moon, we have one more item for consideration. Is that correct? For tonight? What is it? Rieger Farm subdivision, is that for this evening?
Yes, we have two more items on
Two more
tonight's
items.
agenda. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the next item under preliminary plats, a recommendation report on a preliminary plat for Rieger Farm subdivision that has been submitted by Tridum 3 LLC, NU Non-Urban Residence District 18300, 18320, 18320-A, and 18324 Rieger Road, St. Louis County, locator numbers 22X 520051, 22X 520062, 22X 240018, and 22X 240072, which supports the approval of the 7-lot residential subdivision on this 36.98 acre tract of land, which each of the properties being over 3 acres or more in area. This particular property is located in Ward 1. Thank you.
Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight a recommendation report regarding a preliminary plat for a large lot subdivision, which is proposed to be located on the south side of Rieger Road, east Wild Horse Creek Road. The purpose of tonight's presentation is for the preliminary plat of the subdivision, which must be reviewed and acted upon by the commission prior to it proceeding to the record plat process. The petitioner is proposing to subdivide the 37-acre lot into 7 individual lots, all being 4 acres or greater in size, with a new access by a new private roadway off of Rieger Road. The department would note that the 4-acre minimum that is cited is based on an analysis that was conducted by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources relating to future wastewater and potable water needs for each of the lots. The department's review of this plat indicates compliance based on a number of considerations. The first consideration is its compliance with the city's master plan. The property is located within the non-urban conceptual land use category of the master plan, which anticipates single-family homes on individual lots at a density of 1 unit per 3 acres. Next, in considering the compatibility of the proposed subdivision to the surrounding area, the subject site is surrounded by the large lot residential lots in all directions and is less dense than the surrounding pattern, generally speaking. And lastly, the preliminary plat is substantially compliant with the city's zoning regulations and subdivision and development regulations in terms of roadway standards, setbacks, and lot widths. In conclusion, the department is presenting a recommendation that is favorable to this preliminary plat. And as is noted in the department's recommendation report, the favorable recommendation is premised upon a needed refinement of the proposed natural resource protection areas and overall tree preservation on the overall site, and relative to disturbance and foundation setback requirements associated with natural resource protection standards. This would be in order to ensure that the greatest amount of area is protected on the overall 37-acre site. The department understands the desire of the petitioner to maintain some flexibility for the construction of custom homes on each of the lots at this location, but the department believes that it is important to establish protected areas as part of the platting process, again, to ensure protections of trees and natural areas for the long term, regardless of future ownership of the individual lots and over time. The department believes that these needed changes can be addressed as part of the platting process and before it is concluded with the city council. And again, the department is recommending favorable action on the preliminary plat at tonight's meeting, and we are available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Now's a good time for a question, Mr. Jack.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure there's clarification. In the summary write-up, the last sentence says over 3 acres or more. And I'm going to trust that the PDF says 4 per what you just said, that they would be over 4. I'm cool with it. I'm just trusting you that however this goes, it's 4, not 3, because that's the summary as written here.
When the advertisement was written for the preliminary plat process. Okay.
3.
Do we have a motion to approve, deny, or approve with conditions or?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Got a motion approved by Commissioner Clayton. Do we have a second? Councilmember Bros, second. Any additional comments? If not, I guess it'd be a roll call vote, Mr. Travis, Mr. Newberry.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Chair Cohen,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe up to our last item for tonight. Is that correct? Update on pre-occupancy permits.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, a while back, Mr. Jackson asked that an analysis be done of the potential for the city of Wildwood to implement a reoccupancy permit requirement for existing single and two-family dwellings. At this time, the city of Wildwood does not have such a requirement. Our requirements for reoccupancy are generally limited to commercial buildings and structures. Two primary questions were asked as part of this requested analysis. Legally, can the city proceed forward with something of a reoccupancy permit process? And then secondly, the practicality of its implementation in the city of Wildwood. Mr. Young can address the legal matter, and the department has spoken with St. Louis County regarding the latter. Mr. Young?
For the purpose, from the perspective of the city attorney's office, we are comfortable with proceeding with such a regulation.
And then, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, St. Louis County in the unincorporated areas does provide for reoccupancy inspections of 1 and 2 single-family structures and buildings. In a conversation with one of the leadership at the Department of Transportation and Public Works, he certainly would be willing to consider implementing such a permit response program in the city of Wildwood. They have a number of questions that they asked as we discussed this particular matter. I explained to them we're in the exploratory phase, but certainly they are willing to add this inspection to many of the other inspections they already provide in the city of Wildwood. From a practical standpoint, obviously there are charges that would be associated with this. And as we do with all of our permits with St. Louis County, we do not collect a charge at this time for zoning authorization, but St. Louis County does as part of their permitting process. So it could be done with a minimal cost to Wildwood residents, unless again, the city would like to charge a fee for the processing at the start of any request for reoccupancy. Therefore, tonight, Mr. Young and the department are available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Right before Ms. Mayor Boland speaks, I had a quick question. You mentioned St. Louis County. What about the fire department?
The fire departments previously offered inspections. Of the 3 that serve Wildwood, Metro West was the one that, for the most part, continued forward. There were changes at the state legislature that, for the most part, altered some of their authorities in this regard. But at this time, Metro West does provide inspections, as I recall.
For residential, I know they do commercial. But
Yes.
Okay, Mayor Boland, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so Joe, could you please just let all of us and maybe anyone watching know what is the concept of reoccupancy and why are we concerned about it?
concept of reoccupancy relates to the fact that as as buildings and structures age and new materials and safety components are adopted, the existing buildings are not kept up to date. Now, there are private inspections from building inspectors, but certainly it's not a mandate that the seller or buyer be required to meet those. So for the most part, I view it as a life safety component, making sure that minimum safety and life safety components are addressed at the time a property is sold or changes hands.
Thank you for the explanation. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Commissioner Jackson?
Because I've been very vocal about this, I'll give a scenario. So a house I lived on before I moved to Baldwin had an entry from the electricity Ameren. It was too low, so someone could take a rake, anything else, and hit it and electrocute themselves.
Oh my God.
So it had to be moved 3 or 4 feet higher for the entry with a pole. Is that a scenario that would happen? You would inspect as a potential for this as we approve these things or not? But if it were approved, those would be some of the inspection items to make sure it was meeting the current occupancy code for safety of electricity coming into a home, et cetera. Because I see that violation a lot.
Well, the inspection process does conclude the exterior as well as the interior of the dwelling.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brost, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just, maybe clarification, but would this also include any apartments within Wildwood?
Well, there was some discussion about apartments, and certainly, yes, apartments would be inclusive. I thought that St. Louis County was already doing multiple family inspections. They were not sure. It's something we're going to get back to, but yes, multiple family could be inclusive.
So would be or will be? I mean, so will
that
be
is
included?
That is a decision for the commission and ultimately
Okay.
city council.
Because I think there's potentially more risk there than in single family, but that's just past experience talking. Thank you.
I would concur, sir.
When we talk about a home inspection, would that include also homes that are on a well? Is its water potable? Will it include if they're on a septic system? Would that be also included in the inspection or are tested?
The gentleman I spoke with at St. Louis County did not go into detail, that level of detail. For the most part, I was trying to establish if they would be willing to add it to the inspection list and if they had any suggestions relative to the process. At that stage, that's when they started asking about just some statistics analysis that the department didn't have available at this early stage. But certainly we can certainly get that additional information if there is an interest to take the next step on the commission's part.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, so as an example, we've talked about renewables, specifically solar, that would be inspected to make sure it's in good working order, right? As part of this?
That would be a component, I believe, of an inspection, and also just ensuring that if there was solar approved and now it's not on the property, we can ask the question, what'd you do with it?
Exactly.
Which we don't have the ability right now.
So as moving forward, I'll make very clear, I would support the city of Wildwood hire their own inspectors and charge a fee. I would go that far. That's my personal opinion on that. I think we should have city-owned and employed inspectors, professionals, if you go down this path, which I would support doing.
All right, I've got Councilmember Brost and the next Commissioner Broyles. Councilmember Brost, please.
Yeah, I would just say that within our inspection process, I think we just need to be clear as to what it covers, just for the benefit of the buyer or the occupant, that if there is something that, for example, if you're on a well, if it doesn't include a water test, it just needs to state that because so they can take their own action. I'm honestly not in favor of Wildwood doing their own inspections, but that I could or Commissioner Jackson, I'm sure you could like browbeat me and change my mind. So, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Broyles.
Yes, when we moved 9 years ago, we lived on 3 acres, which had a septic tank and a well. And we made sure that we did those and paid for them ourselves and had the documentation so that we crossed every T and dotted every I to get moved. And I would not be in support of hiring someone to do that. I think there's plenty of people out there that will check your well, water, and your sewer system. I mean, we paid for that and had the documentation. So that was one thing that we didn't have to question. It wasn't questionable when the buyers came by and said, yeah, you've covered all those things. We don't have to. But I would not.
Chair, with your permission, and not to extend the meeting, but Ms. Ripito has worked in Town and Country in Manchester, and I believe they've had reoccupancy inspections. She may be able to give you a typical inspection list or what those communities identified as priorities.
I think that would be a good idea for us to have in front of us before we take final action. Do we have a motion at this point or? Yeah. Like to make a motion that Ms. Ripito completes a list that's typical occupancy permit for the commission to review. At that point, take up whatever the appropriate action is.
Mr.
That's
Chair,
my
if I
motion.
may, could we give you a comparison, maybe unincorporated St. Louis County, Town and Country, and then a couple of other municipalities, so you can see if there's consistency across the board or if there's items that are tailored to each individual.
I think
city.
a cross section would be required. Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second it. And I would also add, I would probably look at Baldwin. They do a really good job as well. And Ms. Helfrey had her hand up.
Mr. Helfrey, no? No. All right, at this point, any other questions, comments? We got a motion and a second. We're going to do, what do we do?
This is just to postpone.
Just to postpone. All right, so this is a voice vote to postpone. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. It will be postponed.
We'll have some information back to you as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I believe we have completed the agenda. The only closing remarks I have is in the future, I'd like not to be the chairperson. Mr. Beatty, you're a bad boy tonight. Other than that, Mayor Mullen, you have your hand raised.
Well, contrary wise to that, Chair Cohen, I just wanted to say what a great job I think you did tonight, first of all, and actually exceptional. And secondly, I wanted to thank each one of you, as well as those who are not with us tonight, for all the work and service you do for our city.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
We have a motion from Commissioner Clayton. Do we have a second? Ms. Helfrey, would you like to say a few words?
I just want to tell everybody, don't forget to vote tomorrow, and then I'll second it.
Would you please tell me who to vote for? I'm just
Tell me
kidding.
later.
This be a voice vote, correct? All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.